good. So I want to offer with this podcast 5 simple things you can do if this issue comes up in your life or the life of someone you know. The first thing is start with compassion and understanding. You see, I've never wrestled with thoughts of suicide. This doesn't mean I can't relate to someone who does. So we got to start by listening to the person, seeking to understand the situation that they're in. After listening to them, have compassion on them, love them, let them know that you're there for them and you're there to help them however you can. Remind them, and this is very, very important. Remind them that they're not alone in this world. And if this is you right now struggling with suicide, if you've come across this broadcast on YouTube or whatever the platform is, I want to let you know that you are not alone in this world. You might think you are, but that's a terrible lie. There are a great many people who want to help you and can help you, and there's many people who understand exactly what you're going through. One thing to remember as we move towards this issue with people and we start communicating these things, I want to urge us never to make promises that we can't keep. Out of compassion, wanting to help a friend open up, you might be tempted to say something like, "You can tell me, I promise, I won't tell anybody else." But you should never promise you'll keep everything completely confidential. Sometimes you have to ask a third party for help. We're going to get to more on that in a second. The second thing is to be direct and honest. If you're worried about someone, express your concern to them. Don't be afraid to ask directly, have you thought about suicide? Using that word won't push them toward taking their own life, but it will remove any ambiguity or gray area in the conversation. Don't use less specific language like are you thinking about harming yourself? Because that's a completely different question. And then after being direct, make sure you're prepared for their answer, which is the third action point. Be prepared. Know how to respond. Part of knowing how to respond is being comfortable, and this is really important, being comfortable with any answer they give. Don't be shocked or allow yourself to become uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, they'll most likely see that, and then they might shy away from being completely honest with you. And then so once you've asked if they're thinking about suicide, if they say no, pay attention to nonverbal cues like eye contact, posture, or uneasiness. If you think that they're not being completely honest, let them know that. Say something like, I'm happy to hear that you're not thinking about suicide because I care like so much about you, but are you sure you're being honest with me? I'm noticing, say something like, I'm noticing that you're avoiding eye contact. Can you tell me what's really going on? You might have to ask these types of questions in different ways. Usually people who say no and mean it, pay attention to this too. And if you ask, are you thinking about suicide? And they say no and they mean it, oftentimes they express gratitude or even a little bit of surprise. Oh gosh, no, I would never do that. This has been my experience as I've asked people in my life that I'm concerned about. The people who haven't been thinking about suicide reply almost with shock, but Thanksgiving. Well, thanks for caring for me. And well, heavens no, is the response I get oftentimes. And what happens if they say yes? If they say yes, you see at the ticker here, I have the 988 number. This is the suicide prevention lifeline. It's a Band-Aid solution, but it can help in moments of crisis. It's helpful to know that many times suicide becomes an option. And this is another important point. Suicide becomes an option for people who feel like they've lost control because in bringing this up and asking them if they want to call 988, it helps give them something that they can control. So asking the question, and if you ask questions that require them to make a choice, they can give them a sense of what they feel like they lack control. For example, ask if they want to call the suicide lifeline themselves, or if they want you to do it, or ask if they want to lead in the conversation if they prefer that you take charge initially. But notice the underlying principle is that you get help if the person says yes, they're contemplating suicide. And this is really important. You see, if your friend tells you they have a plan for how they might die by suicide, you have to get a mental health professional involved. That's why we don't make promises of confidentiality. We start with gratitude. We say thank you. We say to them, thank you so much for trusting me with this. Then explain why you want to get a counselor involved. You say something like suicide's a big deal and it's something I don't feel equipped to help you with alone. Say something like, I need help to help you, and can I get you in touch with a counselor who's trained and has access to the proper resources and tools. So that's the third one. Fourth, find a counselor. If your friend says that they're wrestling with suicide, they need to find a Christian counselor in their area. And normally I point people back to their church to help with this. You see, your local church should be able to refer a counselor to you who's been vetted by the pastors and or the elders. And if the church doesn't have any suggestions, which is something I actually get a lot, my church doesn't know anything about this. If the church doesn't have any resources for you, reach out to another church in your area. Stop by on a Tuesday or a Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, or give them a call. And just a word of caution here. Unfortunately, treatment supported by insurance or government assistance programs can do more harm than good in the long run. Not always, but often enough that I feel like I should mention it here. Recently, I corresponded with someone about a child who expressed thoughts of suicide to her parent, and then that parent turned to her public school system, which provided free counseling. The counselor there in the public school suggested that the reason that the student was suicidal was that she was misgendered. So now we have a parent who's trying to find help for her child who's suicidal and convinced that she's in fact a boy. You see, worldviews matter, which is why I think the fifth and final piece of our puzzle here, the fifth piece of advice, is actually the most important. And I can't stress this enough. Share the gospel. The person struggling with suicide needs the gospel. They need it constantly. They need to know the unwavering love found in Christ. Remind them that they're made in the image of God and are of infinite value and worth, no matter what, no matter how they feel or what they think or what anybody else is going to tell them. The truth of the matter is, regardless of their worldview, they are made in the image of God. And it's because they're made in the image of God. They're valuable and they're unique and they're special and their life is meaningful and it's given to them with purpose. This is the one thing, the image of God's stuff is the one thing that you can't throw it off of yourself, even if you want. It's that steady, unchanging fact of every single human being who's walked this planet. They're made in the image of God. And then if they know Christ, reaffirm them in that. And if they don't, help them know Christ has paid it all for them already. And there's nothing more for them to do. And in fact, do this even if they're already a Christian. Remind them of these things. And then just one more thing to add before I get into kind of the comments here. The role of a constant and supportive faith community is one of the biggest helps in these kinds of situations. It's in the context of the church that we're reminded of who we are, and it's there where the gospel hopefully is preached over us every single week. So if your friend isn't currently involved with a church, help them find one and then go with them. So what I've offered here in just this short time is just 5 suggestions on how you can possibly handle one of the most difficult and important conversations you might have with a friend or a loved one. And by taking the time to think about these things now, you might be better equipped. And it's my hope that you're going to be better equipped to handle it later.